It started because of DJ Screw. So everybody loved Screw's music, you know, and everything. In the early '90s, Screw started slowing down music out here in H-Town, right? But all the Screw stuff was just strictly Southside, and there's all Southside representation around it, right? And at one point, the Southside and Northside got into it, right? So a lot of us on the North Side that loved the Screw music around there, you know, we really didn't feel a part of it because, you know, at that point when the North Side and the South Side got into it around there, I mean, the guys on the South Side, they was expressing how they was feeling because um, the guys on out here on, you know, Rosewood, you know,
Mm-hmm.
they was going out there and they was jacking them for their cars and they was expressing their anger because of, you know, the stuff they was going through behind, you know, the carjacking and stuff around there. And basically some of the people sent up there saying, say, fuck the North Side and all that type of stuff. And so everybody just really just stopped listening to the Screw tapes around there. So they really wanted to, everybody still loved the style of it, man. But you know, at the end of the day, nobody's gonna sit there and listen to something when somebody's disrespecting you on it.
Yeah.
So basically, man, I just started doing it because of that. Because before I've been making mixtapes
I
for a
was gonna
long
say, were
time.
you slowing down music on your
No,
own,
no, no.
or
I wasn't slowing down music before Screw was doing it. I'm going to admit that I really
yeah,
wasn't doing it. I
yeah?
probably did a
Screw was
song,
innovator of
but
the slow. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not to the level that Screw was doing. I probably
Right.
did a song for somebody that wanted one slow, but no, not just making a whole slow down mixtape. Absolutely not. You know, matter of fact, the guys had to beg me for some years before I actually slowed down one form. And one day I just did it, and it took off, and I just
But you were a fan of the Screwed and Chopped from SUC,
yeah,
DJ Screw.
I'm still a fan of
Mm-hmm.
Screw music and the whole SUC. Matter of fact, you know, on my show on Sundays when I first started doing it, the majority of it was Screwed Up Click and SUC freestyles and stuff like that, things that represent the culture. So yes, absolutely.
Let me ask you this. So you obviously said, you know, South Side, North Side, how it was going down at the time.
Yeah.
Did somebody come to you and say, "Man, Watts, we need a slow down chop screw on the North Side"?
Man,
How did that come about? Because somebody had to put it in your ear, right?
yeah, absolutely, man. My boys from Rosewood, man, they was like I say, man, they big Screw fans around it before they got into it with the South Side. But man, they literally begged me for some years to do it. You know, I remember my friend Charlie Ray and Alvin and some of the guys, my boy Carlton. You know, all these my neighbors, man. They all stayed in the hood, man, but they all love Screw music. But you know, they really wanted something that represented us. So that's why I started doing it.
Yeah, and we've actually talked, you know, over the years about different stuff when you did with the Swisha House, how it got started. Because a lot of people were thinking, okay, at the time when Swisha House was around, you had the Dope House,
Yes.
and then the Swisha House. But you said that had nothing to do because you was already calling your studio the Swisha House, right?
Yeah. So when I started doing slow down mixes, I didn't want to call them Screw mixes. I called them Swisher mixes, and I called my studio the Swisher House. So that's how I ended up coming up with that name.
Yeah, and obviously the Screwed Up Click and DJ Screw caught wind of what you was doing. Was there any kind of like, oh man, from their fans, like you copied him and all that?
Absolutely.
You were getting that too? You were getting that smoke?
Absolutely. I mean, anybody that slowed down music at that time, but my stuff is different. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, at the end of the day, you know, I don't care what it is that you do. If it's something that's great, man, somebody else is going to do it anyway. But
you always paid homage to him. You always say, "Hey, Screw was the one that started this."
Yes, absolutely. I never ever said I started it ever. You know, Screw's the one that started out here in H-Town, just started doing the whole mixtapes like that. But I'm not gonna lie to you. I did hear a slowed down mixtape before I heard of Screw in the '80s. Group, I think they called themselves Jam Pony Express, and I think their stuff was like called something like Florida Drag or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I did hear one of those mixtapes before I heard Screws. You know,
yeah.
I'm not saying that influenced him, but that's what I'm saying.
What was so different from Screw's Chopped and Screw to yours?
Honestly, man, for me, I tell that when you listen to Screw tape, you could tell that he does the whole mix live. You know, like it's like when I'm here at the radio station, when I'm mixing with you at 5 o'clock, I'm going live. The Switch House mixes I was doing, it was more of a production than just doing a live mix. I've done it live before the freestylers came in there, like before Slim Thug and the guys started rapping on the mixtapes. You know, I would go in there and mix live and slow it down like that. But you know, when the guys came in and started rapping, it was, you know, it was more of a
It was a
production
production, yeah.
than a live
Yeah.
mix.
So who was some of the earlier influences, or as far as like your first rappers on some of your mixtapes?
Okay, before Slim Thug, I had various artists that would come through there and freestyle, like my boy Derek Lee. He would come through there, and his brother would come through there. I also had some guys from Acres Home that come through there. Lil Pluck.
A lot of these guys were your
other people.
neighbors, right? Some of these guys were your neighbors, right?
I've met Pluck and the guys from Acres Home, the first crew from Acres Home. Pluck and the other guys around there. I met them through my friend named Bullet Wayne. Bullet Wayne is one of my best friends, and he been buying my mixtapes forever, way before I even started slowing down music. So sometimes he'll bring some of his homeboys over there, and some of them they you know, they come through there and freestyle. I used to let them freestyle on my mixtapes.
What was the first big mixtape that you had out where people started saying, "Man, okay, Swisha, these boys on the Northside doing some things over here"?
I think one of the first big ones that we did where we started getting recognized by the city was Swisha '98, and that was one of the first CDs that Slim Thug and Lil Mario and J Dog rapped on. At that point, I started hearing that the mixes started growing in the city from that point.
But you personally didn't have nothing beef with Screw, right? You
absolutely not.
Yeah.
No. Actually, man, I was actually playing some of his stuff on the air before he even died. You know, because when I was on the radio here in the '90s around there, my main thing has always been Houston culture. Now, I wasn't doing slow down music on the radio before he passed, obviously, to be real with it. But yeah, I always played, you know, Houston culture stuff around there, and I always played some of Screw stuff while he was alive here.
Did you ever get a chance to chop it up or anything like that? Talk?
I talked to him a couple of times. I actually met him like 3 times, but not to really chop it up and do any real business.
Like he didn't
really talk
he
for
didn't
real.
tell you like, "Hey man, I see what you're doing, man. I keep doing what you're doing."
No, we didn't really have a conversation
music like that.
We really didn't have a real conversation like that. I remember one time I met him over there at with D-Rec at Rec Shop, and he came by there while I was getting some records from D-Rec, and D-Rec introduced me to him. And it's so crazy, man. I really felt like when I was gonna meet him, I didn't know what to expect. I thought I was gonna feel some animosity, considering the situation in the '90s between the North and the South back then, and considering what I was doing, you know. But on the cool, when I talked to him, man, I didn't feel no animosity from him at all, man. I was really surprised, man. He's really cool as shit.
Man.
Yeah, he was really cool as shit, man. You know.
So who was some of the I know you talked about J Dog and Slim Thug and Lil Mario. Who was some of the early ones that maybe aren't even doing stuff now, but back then they was part of the whole Swisha House clique?
Okay, so look, before Slim Thug and Mario and J Dog, the Acres Home crew came in, right? It was Lester Roy and Archie Lee.
Yeah.
So Lester Roy and Archie Lee, they was two of the first rappers to actually say Swisha House on the mixtape. Yes, they were. Lester Roy was my neighbor that lived down the street, and Archie Lee was his best friend. So when Lester Roy would come through there and rap, he would bring Archie with him sometimes. So that was the first ones that really said Swisha House in there before the bigger guys came in.